For me, success is comes in three stages. First is when we finally get to a point where we block out the noise and we clarify, like, who am I? Who am I at my core? What's important to me? What mark do I want to make on this world? I call it the beautiful struggle, and I think that's something that Black Americans, we look at as part of our history, our lineage, kind of being descendants of slaves, and life. Yeah, it's hard, and for anyone who wants to grow a brand, a business, build connections, and maybe unify a community, story is what underpins it. It's what unifies it. In Brighton, you go to the co-working spaces or you go to the networking events, you oftentimes, it's kind of striking. There's a lack of Black and brown people. Relationships, that's what drives success. Your net worth is your network. I would go to events and I would do what I understood to be, everything right. And people would, just kind of go around me, look over me, look directly through me. People would not engage. People avoid engaging with diversity. And it is disheartening, and it's sad, and it's isolating, and it makes you feel like you don't belong. 15 minutes, like stood in the middle of this room, it's like humiliating. It's humiliating. Like no one talking, to you. No one just coming up and just striking up conversation. No one asking you like a question or showing any interest. Doing everything they can to avoid you. Our culture belongs, our dance moves belong, but what about our people? If we want to be successful, we have to identify our core values, and then we have to learn to divine that in others and go beyond, the snap judgment of what we see. And that is my challenge. My challenge to people is, if you want to be successful, identify your values and then identify those values in others, and then build relationships with those people, and then collaborate. I feel like this is Brighton's chance to show, if nothing else, our country what's possible.
I'm on a mission to help the world to see success differently. We're sharing the stories of our guests. I hope to inspire those that listen. This is the Different Hats podcast, produced by H2 Productions. I hope you can join us on this journey. Okay, I'm just going to say something about one of our sponsors, Riverval. The world of cars, vans and minibuses is often a pain point for many of us. The hassle of finding the right vehicle, let alone looking after it, are all more things to add to our lists as busy people. Riverval's mission is to make motoring manageable, and that's why they provide leasing, purchasing, servicing and vehicle management. So whether you have one family car or a fleet of vans for your business, Riverval are your trusted vehicle supplier. Visit www.riverval.co.uk. Okay, let's jump back to the podcast. Okay, welcome to another episode of the podcast. Today, my very special guest, good friend, the legend is Mr. Kevan Smith. Kevin, how are you, mate?
I'm all right. Thanks so much for having me on. This is a big deal for me.
Oh, mate, listen, what an honour to have you on. It's been so great getting to know you, especially over the last year, since, from the retreat when me and you went on with Toby. And then, with your help of putting together the 100th episode, mate, I'm cloud nine still from that a few months on, right? But just to see your journey, especially over the last year or so, what you've achieved and what you're putting out in the world, mate, it's just been nothing short of inspirational. It really has, and it's a real honour to have you on and have a chat with you. Someone I class as a very good friend now as well. and I'm excited to delve in.
Yeah, no, it's an honor, and living somewhere special where you touch on doing some things that matter to you, some things that you believe in, and so much of that comes down to being in a place that nurtures you and that brings people like you and me together. And so it's special to be in this place and to be connected with fantastic people doing special things. So
It's a great community here, mate. It's a great community. Well, look, as always, we're gonna jump straight in, right, with the big question, as you know. So, what? Talk to me. How do you define it? What does success mean to you?
for me, success is comes in three stages. First is knowing what matters to you, knowing what you're about at your core. And people always say, like know thyself. That's like the first rule. But it's challenging. There's a lot of distractions, and we're living up to expectations of other people. And so when we finally get to a point where we block out the noise and we clarify, like who am I? Who am I at my core? What's important to me? What mark do I want to make on this world? Then that for me is the first step. And once you clarify who you are, the next step of success is living that, embodying it, putting it out. Like finding your voice, finding your way of sharing your why, and that's the next level of success. So you know who you are, then you start walking that path. You start communicating, and people recognize you for your truth, for your core, for your essence. And that's the second stage. And the third stage for me is when you materialize what it is. And for some people, it's money. For some people, it's building community, building family. And once you achieve that why, and you start passing it on to others, and other people are either inspired or connected by your mission, then that's for me the third stage of success. And so at the very, the simplest, most basic level, it's just knowing who you are and being clear on what matters to you, what your core values are and where they stem from. And then it goes all the way up to being a catalyst and inspiring others, and leading by example.
Love that. I love that. There's some. I listen. I was at an event at the weekend. It was Dr. Rangan Chatterjee done a live podcast or a live event. It's called the Thrive event at the Brighton Centre, and it was amazing. And so much along the lines of what you've just said around knowing what your values are. Like, no, sure, because I've referenced it so much, and he actually talked about it on the night about Brodie Ware, who wrote the book The Five Regrets of the Dying, and I've referenced it many times on the podcast. But it's if the biggest regret of the dying is that I've not lived a life true to myself, not lived a life in alignment with my values. And if you know, like you said, first point of call is finding out what that is, right? Like trying to understand, I guess, who, and once you've got that, then it actually it makes it easier to make decisions. So whether what job you're going to do, what partner you're going to get with, or whatever that looks like, because if it aligns with my values, if it aligns with where I am it makes decision making easier. No,
It does, but that's also one of the pitfalls, because you find yourself through challenge, through adversity, and when you electively put yourself into situations where you have to respond on instincts, those are the moments that define you. And we live in this world where we want constant entertainment or comfort, all of these signals to show that we're where we should be. And that doesn't push us outside of our comfort zone. And it's so easy to go on that journey where we get the house, we get the partner, We have the car, all of the things that signify success. But if we've not pushed ourselves outside of our comfort zone, and not in a way where other people that we look up to following their way of challenging themselves, finding our own unique way of exploring, like what's at the depth and it's at the core. That's the real challenge. How do we find a situation? And there's maybe about 10 years ago, there was this thing about grit. Grit was a big, kind of catchphrase, and a lot of the consultants. One of my friends, he was a consultant with Ernst Young, and they would grade their consultants. They would give them a grit score. It was just as important as their degree, their marks at university, and I feel like we've really lost appreciation for struggle, for challenge, for developing grit. And that is really essential to finding how you respond to adversity. And that's what defines you. And that's what we're really, really looking for.
Because there's something in that, isn't there? In the struggle, I think Bruno said it. I remember on one of the podcasts, he was like a broken human being, someone that's been through struggle, is much more beautiful than a human being that's never suffered, right? Because there's something in that, and we do, like you said, we live in a society. And why is it we live in this society where it's constantly telling us that we need this, we need that, we need and to get there, but actually, until we know we are here, it doesn't matter if we get all of these tick box things, right? It doesn't necessarily matter to a degree, because we don't. It's not, if it's not in alignment with who we are, then we're going to get lost on that path and that journey, because you'll get there and there won't be that fulfillment and that stuff. And I wonder whether, I guess from your point of view, that adversity side of stuff, like trying to come through, why people want things right now, right? Like we're in a society, Amazon, get it, everything's right. It's so instant. So we're not. I guess we're not programmed to see the benefits of struggle, what that looks like to come through, right?
I think there's two things in that. And the first, like you said, we're given this idea of what we're supposed to achieve, what boxes we're supposed to tick. And we have to remember that we live in a capitalist society. And even I work in branding and marketing. My job is influence. It is to establish a perception in the viewer's mind. And the nature of government, of this capitalist system, is that we're supposed to fuel it. We're supposed to clock in and feed into it. All of the messaging, everything that we see on television and in ads, it's aspirational. This is how we define what we're seeking to achieve, and it's insidious to a degree. And so there has to be this awareness of these expectations, societal expectations that we're trying to live up to and trying to achieve. This all comes part and parcel to a system that benefits from keeping us plugged in to this rat race and keeps us on Amazon buying disposable kind of crap. And it's understandable. We're all susceptible to being influenced. Marketing, it's a science, and so first it's identifying, like I said, is this me? Like why do I hold these values? Why is this for me something that I'm really striving to achieve? And is it possible that it's just because I'm in a capitalist system? And is that really what I want to pass down? And beyond that, it is like you said, we become so accustomed to comfort, and when you do achieve some degree of kind of financial success, that makes it easy to have a kind of really cushy life and adorn yourself with lots of luxuries. And if we really want to go on a journey of self-discovery, then it's looking for those opportunities to challenge ourselves, to do things the hard way. I feel we can still live a comfortable life and enjoy, the luxuries of the world if we also make it a point to test ourselves, to find these little challenges that push us to to the edge of what we wonder whether or not we can kind of successfully traverse this path. And for me, that's the mindset, is to it's okay to enjoy luxuries, but also do everything you can to immerse yourself in challenge and in strife, to really know how you respond and who you are. And that for me is something that if you've got kids, you want your kids to look up and see someone who's pushed themselves and who has accepted challenges, come out on the other side stronger and more resolute. And so yeah, that for me is the two things to keep in mind.
Where does that mindset for you, like that journey of self-discovery, where does that come from you? Is it, I mean, is this a realization recently? Is it, I mean, from childhood to, where is that for you? Where's that realization coming for you?
I read a lot, back when I was in uni and in my 20s. And God, I was into Mishma, is this the Book of Five Rings, and the Way of the Warrior, and these books of philosophy and kind of psychology that talk about kind of defining yourself. So I come from a very, very, very religious upbringing in the Bible Belt in America, and so you're handed kind of Christianity, and but I also was into the sciences. I studied biology and chemistry in uni, and so I was also really analytical and quite practical. And so I would wonder sometimes about the things that I was kind of being handed in Christianity, and how to balance that with the things that we were working on in the labs. And so I was like, okay, I need to define what's real and true for myself. So that's when I kind of got into studying alternative religions and psychology and philosophy, and I think it was in those journeys of trying to reconcile the teachings of Christianity with my life and my world, my scientific mind, and then finding the happy medium, finding what was in between those. That's on that path. That's where I think this whole journey of self-discovery and deciding, like, who am I, like, what do I know to be right and true for me, as opposed to what's been handed to me. And one in particular is probably the teachings of this guy Carlos Castaneda, and he would go down to Mexico and spend time with this shaman, and a lot of his books and his teachings were on the ego, and kind of coming to understand your ego, and going on kind of like vision quests, or really testing yourself, and how a lot of indigenous cultures, this was a rite of passage. I mean, like some cultures, you get a knife and I don't know, maybe some kind of sheepskin or something, and sent off to live in the wilderness for 3 days, and if you come back, you're a man. And so I think kind of taking on those stories in a formative period made me think, okay, how can I go on my own journeys of self-discovery? How can I, go off camping, woefully unprepared, and then, oh wow, I survived that. And kind of reading in the paper the next day, I was in Oregon once on this trip, and went just kind of camping off in the woods, and come to find out a couple of days later, there's a mountain lion that had been prowling and out and about where I was camping. And yeah, it's just like, okay, thought something seemed a bit kind of weird out in the woods, but you put yourself into these challenges, you come back on the other side, and I'm just like, okay, I learned something there.
God, but I'm keen. Then let's go back right to the start. Like, talk to me about what I need to know about Kevan Smith growing up. Like, talk to me about growing up in Arkansas that shaped this person who sits in front of me now, like where you are on that journey and getting to that stage at, at university and being that inquisitive and wanting to find, I guess, question things. I guess that's the key, isn't it? You obviously got a natural curiosity around someone's going to hand you something, and you're not just going to believe that. You want to go and find out about different alternatives and different options. So tell me a little bit more about that. What do I need to know about you and your childhood, I guess, that shaped that person?
Yeah, probably two things in particular. First and foremost, I grew up on a farm. We were self-sufficient, from making our own butter and making. We had every imaginable fruit tree and every animal, from goats to geese, cows, pigs, and so life was work from the very start. I must have been about 5 years old, and we had a wood burning stove on the farm, and the first time my family is my auntie, but my cousin, he's 7 years older, my grandfather and an uncle, and we were in the forest adjacent to the farm cutting down firewood. And my aunt, she was my grandfather's right hand man, or right hand woman. She turned to me and she said, I said, Kebby. Yes, they would call me Kebby. Kebby, you gotta pick up the pieces of wood and put them on the back of the truck. And if you pick up, the big pieces of wood, you grow up big and strong. And that was my introduction to work. There was this person who was larger than life to me. Who I knew how much my grandfather respected and admired her, and she impressed upon me the value of work, not as this is what you have to do, like this is what you get to do to develop the person that you want to be. You want to grow up big and strong, and this is the way to do it with family. And so that was the underlying, we the amount of time I spent in the hayfields, I don't think anyone has any concept of what a Arkansas hayfield is. 41 degrees in the summertime. I don't know, 4 or 5 acres of grass. It's been mowed down to hay, and me, my grandfather, and my cousin with rakes, and my auntie driving the truck around. We're raking piles of hay, and then putting pitchforks of hay onto the truck, getting onto the truck, walking around, packing it down. Again, 41 degrees, and I'd be about, maybe 7 years old at this point, 7, 8 years old, all the way up into my teens, taking that hay to the hay loft, unloading it. Every now and then, snakes wriggling out of the hay as you're putting it on the truck, and just another level of work and strife. But for you, it is just life, and you become accustomed to very, very hard work and responsibility, sun up to sundown, and living in a way that's akin to the 1800s. And so, yeah, I would say the first thing that shaped me is the responsibility of keeping yourself and your family and your animals alive on the farm, and balancing that with schooling. Because my mom, she's a brilliant woman, and for her, education was key. And where I come from in Arkansas, in Wrightsville, Arkansas, it's adjacent to the Delta, to the Delta region, the Mississippi Delta region, and this is the most impoverished region in America. It is in many ways a third world. High illiteracy and poverty. There's no industry. When slavery ended, a lot of the black people in that part of the world, they stayed, and because we weren't allowed to read and write when we were slaves, a lot of them didn't embrace education or kind of like the white man systems. And so these enclaves, it's like going back in time. Whereas my family was, education was always critically important. That's the way that you elevate yourselves out of this situation. And my mom, she went to university, and so on one hand, it was the work, it was the farm work, and on the other hand, it was education and being pushed. And that's really what shaped me to take on the challenges and to explore, to be curious, and to have the fortitude to work and be tireless in that effort.
It's so much as that. What one thing that you mentioned there that I took from that, your auntie saying that you get to do this, like that. Although that's hard work and the stuff but you get to do it. I think there's such an important message for me in that because we often refer work, especially hard work, as something we have to do, right? But the fact that you know, if you reframe it and you get to do that, there's a level. I guess I'm just an assumption, but a level of gratitude towards that, and then life in general, right? If you've got more, would that be right? Am I on the right lines and thinking that, like, you go, I get to do it. I get to do this because I'm going to get it, and the outcome is going to be that I'll get big and strong, and I'm going to do this. I get to do this, which is great because this is going to be that. Was there that process or no?
Probably aptitude is probably a part of it. Even here at New Year's, my partner, their family has this cabin up in the just next to Snowdonia, in the mountains over in Wales, and this massive oak tree fell over onto the outhouse and blocked some of the paths, kind of leading to the other parts of the property. And so kind of growing up, like from 5, I loved working with wood. I loved felling trees and splitting wood. It's like poetry to me. It's something about it that I just love. And so, when my partner's dad was saying, okay, we're going to have to go up there and get this sorted. And I was like, no. Yeah, we'll go up. Me and Eleanor go up and sort it out. And I really looked at that as something that I get to do. I get to attack this. It's a puzzle that I get to kind of figure out and make order of it. And it's just something, it's again, I found my aptitude, like what resonates with me, what I enjoy doing, and I'm kind of built for it. And so I think I probably wouldn't have been pushed or even because my little brother, he had asthma. He wasn't the same kind of farm boy as I was, and he was never made to work like I was. And so maybe my mom, maybe my aunt, maybe they identified that wasn't really his nature, but they could see this is something that I'll really want to sink my teeth into, and just take it on head first without this idea of like, oh, this is a burden, this is what I have to do. This is what we do. This is it. This is us. This is me.
Yes, and again, a great thing. I guess a great message just to listen to from people thinking about stuff, and just because you go into anything you go into, if you go into it with that attitude, that's helps you further along a lot. And I'm keen to get because I'm trying to piece together you're describing that, and then you talk about like chemistry and biology that you sort of studying in there, and then how from that to the industry that you went into with filming and rigging, and where join the dots up for me there. Where did that come?
I tell you, the sciences. I was a good student. Kind of tested.
You
really,
enjoyed education.
I did, and tested really high on a standardized test when I was 8 or 9, and then got put into a separate education track in America. They're really good for picking kids, who are scholastic and have aptitude in that way, and putting us on tracks where we're challenged and we're not kind of held back. You can really push yourself to whatever you can achieve. And so then I ended up kind of going into the sciences and spent a lot of time. We have our science fair. I don't know if we have science fair over here, but over there, science fair, Model UN, like all of these academic competitions, spelling bee. It's a really big deal. And so that was just a major part of my life. But science, for me, I don't know. I was kind of fortunate. My mom worked at the University of Arkansas for medical sciences, and there's so many programs to get kids into the sciences and into medicine, and kind of got on some programs when I was, I don't know, maybe 14, 15. That led to me working in labs, for years. Actually won a NASA award for achievement in science when I was 17 for a
Wow.
project that I had relating to microbiology and T cell function. And yeah, you just kind of just
Wow.
end up in places on tracks because you have that curiosity and interest and aptitude.
Yeah.
But then again, like I said, transitioning into uni, and you start questioning the things that are handed to you and trying to make sense, and kind of going on this path of philosophy and psychology and human behavior. And by the time I was in my last year of uni, I decided that like living and embodying philosophy was more important than sitting in a class and kind of going this structured, programmed route. And so it's like, you know what, I'm just gonna travel, and I'm gonna write, and I'm gonna talk about the connection that we have between us all. And that for me was what was real and valid. And so leaving uni in my last year, it seemed like such a great idea at the time. 2 years later, looking around, it's like, oh man, like I need a job. And just yeah, I was just really fortunate. I was waiting tables at the time. It was summertime in Arkansas, 2001, and the restaurant that I was working in, it closed down. So it was like, gotta get some money to pay the bills, and kind of was doing temporary jobs. And one of the temporary jobs, they sent me to this stadium to work on this NSYNC concert. And so, all right, you show up there, and my job that day, along with probably five or six other real sad souls, we had to set out like thousands of chairs. We just like one after another in the just at the in the stadium on the turf,
Yeah.
just thousands of chairs, like one after the other, in the Arkansas hot summer sun. Again, 41 degrees. It's like one of the worst jobs I've ever had in my life. Set out all these chairs, and then after that, we go back and we just put stickers on them, like with the numbers on it. And it was
Wow.
just one of the worst jobs I've ever done. But on the other side, of the field, there was this fence, and there's these people building the stage, and they were laughing, and had bottles of water, and nobody was yelling at them. Everything was all chill, and kind of had a break, wander over to the fence, and it's like, hey, how do I get on that side of the fence? How do I come and work with you guys? And someone said, yeah, go talk to that woman. This woman, this absolute saint, Kat Hennon. They sent me to go talk to her, and 2 days later, I was on the road touring with NSYNC. And so that's how I got into the entertainment industry. And on my very first gig, they were short of people to climb and to go up. And someone was like, "Are you afraid of heights?" No. Take this harness, go up there, and undo those things. And that's how I started. Like my first entry into rigging. And yeah, that's before I knew it, I had a career in the entertainment, film, and TV industry, rigging, and it really is really changed the trajectory of my life.
Just by going, looking over that fence, going, I want to do what you guys are doing.
Yeah. Not being afraid to ask, and being ready to go. You said, "Can you be? Can you get on the road? Can you be on a bus and head to Denver?" And that was it. I was in Denver 2 days later. I was in Detroit a week from that, and just touring around the country with NSYNC. So yeah, it changed my life.
Again, what a brilliant message, people listening, thinking,
Stay in school. That's
stay. Wait, that's not what I took from that. That is not what I took from that. I was just about to say that just say yes to opportunities.
Yeah.
Go. I'm going to give it a go. Can you do that? Yeah. don't know how to do it, but I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
Innit? I'm just going to give it a go. That's what I took from it. No, I certainly did. I certainly did. Status Quo, though, everybody. Status Quo. That's brilliant. Wow. That's fascinating, because I know we've spoke obviously offline a little bit, but it was great to be able, because when I was like, even like some of the stuff I've heard you talk about before, and when we was at the retreat, you spoke about Arkansas and growing up, and I was just trying to piece everything together. How does this all pan out? Like going and now we know.
Just random.
Just random NSYNC stuff, and then like you said, and then obviously because then you come to London to study at.
I studied at London Film Academy, and my time at London Film Academy was after, like, kind of during my career. This was 2011, and I'd been in the industry for some time. And I got my first big break. Was working on a blockbuster film.
Oh, wow!
And
what film?
Step Up to the Streets 2.
Oh, okay.
And
wow.
But just kind of, they needed what they call us rock and roll riggers. So we use different equipment in the rock and roll industry to the film and TV industry. So even though we're adjacent, some people work. Some we do corporate. We do rock and roll or concerts, and we do film and TV, and the techniques are slightly different. So, but they needed some people with our skill set on this on the set on this film. And so kind of got sent down to, because we work with hoists with motors, and because on this film, and the money is like almost triple what we make in the rock and roll industry, and it's so classy and catered for, and you just feel like you're part of something special. And so I was asking some of the other guys, some of the people on the lighting team, what were the gaffers. They're like, all right, like, how do I do more of this? This is similar to those guys on the fence. Like, I want to do a whole lot more than this. Like, what do I do? And
there's a theme here, mate.
Yeah, one of the guys, he said, what I would recommend is taking this course at London Film Academy. That way, you'll know your way around set, and when you get other opportunities like this, people will recognize that you understand the different departments and what your role is, how to move around, how to who gets priority and right of way, and you'll just be more savvy when you're on set. So I was like, oh damn, yeah, definitely do that, and signed up for this course at London Film Academy, and as a byproduct, one of our projects was to make a short film. And it'd been a long time since I'd done something creative, since I'd done anything kind of storytelling, immersed in story. And kind of come out of that course, both being more confident and adept on set, because I understood the different departments and how the big picture came together. But it also sowed that seed of creativity and wanting to do storytelling and to create. And then it also gave me the tools and understanding of cinematography, lighting, and audio. It equipped me with all the intangibles, to execute that.
Wow, and the whole storytelling. That's what I find fascinating. I love like this. I get to hear people's stories, right, and share them, and which is fascinating for me. It's like an education, which I wasn't great. I didn't get a great education, so I didn't go in school, but I do get to do this, so I get to, what I mean. But anyway, with that and the story, and like the stuff that you do become and what you helped me to create for the 100 episode, like wow, like the level of storytelling to a different level, right? Being able to, I guess, understand that, but that storytelling thing, is that because you're such a great storyteller, and you obviously, like, is that just through all of your life experiences and life growing up, and that again, I guess one of the biggest things about, or would I be right in saying one of the biggest things about story is natural curiosity, which you seem to have? Would I be right?
I think it's curiosity, but for me, it really starts with connection. There's something really special that happens when you believe something, you feel something, and you're able to put it into words, or you're able to paint a picture, you're able to kind of make it tangible and present it to someone else. And when someone else gets it, when you feel like you have that connection, there's something that's so freeing and so special about that moment of being felt, being heard or understood. And that is really at the core of what drives me. That's I love that is when you're sitting in a strategy session, with a client, or we're discussing, okay, what's your vision with the 100th episode, and it's like, okay, I feel like I get what you mean. Now I have the tools to put that into into film form, into visual media, and yeah, it's something that really lights me up. Both, if I take a great picture and I feel like people understand the emotion or the scene or the the feeling, the essence of that photo, and I'm just captivated by this sense of connection and transferring of experience and emotion, and that's what drives me, and really. And I think it's also a lot of my upbringing, which, I call it the beautiful struggle. And I think that's something that Black Americans, we look at as part of our history, our lineage, kind of being descendants of slaves, and life. Yeah, it's hard, and if like I only know my grandfather. We don't know anyone in my family past my grandfather, and in contrast, to people in this country, I was with a good friend of mine, and on a job once. We were somewhere in central London, and we went into one of the cathedrals. I'm not sure if it was St. Paul, but we went into one of the cathedrals, and he was saying, you see that name up on the wall, and it said Macklin, and it was from, I don't know, maybe the 1700s, and he's like, yeah, that's my great 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 grandfather. And it's just instantly just like, wow, this, what, everything, so much that's been passed down, like how to be successful, how to stay true to your family name, and that we're proud. This is what it takes to continue, passing down the pride of our lineage, and contrast that with, like, I only knew, my grandfather, and his father would have been either a slave or the first free person in our family. And so it's a contrast that if you can either roll over, or you can stand up and be resolute and wanting to have a life, to have something to be proud of and to pass down. And that's the beautiful struggle. And so when you have that connection, because that's every Black person in America who lives, like, we were tough. We didn't roll over. We didn't kind of crumble. And so there is this pride. We are the descendants of greatness. We overcame the one of the most gross kind of challenges and circumstances that you could imagine, and we're proud on the other side, and we persist. And so I feel like there is also, when you overcome challenges, and again, it comes back down to grit, and yeah, that connects you, with emotion, and with, like, what's genuine and true. You cannot be contrived and come through that kind of situation. The only thing is, like, yeah, you have to be your core essence, and that's what a good story is. It's how do you encapsulate that core essence? Like, what's real, what's true, and then convey that. And so yeah, I think that's probably what makes me adept at storytelling, is that, yeah, that struggle and that connection with being felt and understood.
Okay, I just wanted to say something about one of our sponsors, Search 7. They are a search marketing agency for social good. They elevate brands' online exposure locally, nationally, and globally through strategic SEO and paid media consultancy. They specialise in many different sectors, including charities, e-commerce, travel, health and medical education, and professional and creative services. They also give agencies and charities the exposure they deserve via their hosted agency and charity events, helping to build community and connections. Their pledge is the inspiration behind their name. Since they started in 2011, they have pledged to give back 7% of their profits to charity. This has become a minimum of 7% each year, with their current fundraising surpassing £150,000 in support of 63 charities. Their latest campaign, #Share177k, aims to raise £177,000 by the end of 2026 to mark their 15th birthday. It's a pleasure to have them as part of the Series 7 of the podcast. I'm delighted. Thanks so much for your support.
The beautiful struggle. I love that. So if it's something, and you're absolutely right. Like for me, like connect, like the power of storytelling, whatever form it's in, whether it's sitting opposite someone having a conversation like this, whether it's in film or audio or in a picture or whatever it is. Like when we do our top table events, like the people sit around like a campfire and share stories, right? Like the level of connection that people build and it's just purely on the basis of being able to tell a story, and whatever that story looks like, whether it's a funny story, a profound story, insightful, a traumatic story, whatever it is, it's something that enables someone to connect with you on a different level, isn't it? Which is something, a beautiful struggle. I love that.
It is. When you do marketing, when you are doing kind of video production and personal branding, like I do, then at the very fundamental, at the foundational level, it's you kind of are taught that we connect with stories, human connect with stories. It's something that sitting around a fire for centuries, for all of humanity, that has been how we understand what dangers to look out for, or the signs that spring is coming, or that it's time to plant. And it's through stories. It's not through the analytical elements. It's that's how we connect. We're just programmed. We're hardwired to respond to stories. And as I'm preparing for my TED Talk in April, then that was one of the areas where I felt I say inadequate in some ways. Because I've never told stories through auditory medium. It's always either been written or on video, but to get up and speak in front of people and tell stories, it's like, I just kind of was really stressed about it. And so I've put in so much work this year, so much effort has gone into understanding how to tell a story, how to structure it, and just like in photography, you have rules of composition, and they emulate storytelling. Lighting and lines and rule of thirds. These are all just like setting the scene and the hook, and the delivery of the payoff, and so I had to learn how to become more confident telling stories, through audio. And it's something that, so there are some people who are just gifted natural storytellers, and I feel like I'm probably fortunate when it comes to visual media, that that's something that lends itself to me.
I understand that, yeah.
But we all have the capacity to become better storytellers, and it's one of the best investments in your time and your energy, because it'll help you to connect with people. And so now I feel so much more comfortable and confident telling stories, but I've gone from a point of feeling exposed or inadequate, or like I just didn't have the confidence. And now I feel like it's a work in progress, and you get better the more stories you tell. But it's for anyone who wants to grow a brand, a business, build connections, and maybe unify a community. Story is what underpins it. It's what unifies it, and is gives it the the fuel to make it all possible.
Yeah, and it's interesting hearing you talk like that, because we sat there on that retreat together, and you stood up and talked, and I was just like blown away with how you communicate, how you could tell a story, and back then, and like you said, you're saying, but even then, was that sort of the start of that type of journey towards what you're going to do next month, like?
100%. And it comes down to my trust in Toby Moore. Like the episode that you had with Toby, it is incredible, and I'm so fortunate to call him a good friend.
He's a
And
legend, mate.
I've spent a lot of time. So much of what I spout, it's just stuff that Toby said in conversation. He's, yeah, really clever person. But it also meant that I had the trust going into his talk retreat that his methodology would produce results. And so what what I got up and spoke about, the story that I told then, was something that I worked through in the workbook. And it's like, okay, I'm analytical, having a background in science. And so I'm like, okay, like if I can understand this structure and then weave it together like I would in writing, or think about, the poetry of a beautiful photo, then I can make it emulate this kind of organic storytelling. But for me, it's really this kind of analytical, structured, formulaic piecing blocks together and having an understanding of how it goes together. Then it feels organic, but I don't personally feel like a natural storyteller. But I do understand
Much
from
like
a
the
foundational,
science.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
the science
exactly.
behind it.
So I think anyone can really, if you can follow a recipe in a cookbook, and I know not everybody can. Some people are natural cooks and just have a taste for, a hand for it. They can
Yeah.
just know this is going to come out. Like I have a hand for cooking. Others, we can follow the recipe to a T and make something that is just like, wow, this is a perfect rendition of this recipe. And so, yeah, there's different ways to tell stories. You don't have to be a natural storyteller to do it well.
Yeah, I love that. Well, look, you've mentioned about TEDx. Well, I want to obviously go back, if we can, to obviously TEDx last year. Um, and obviously, I want to talk about Brighton United and how that's come about, but it really stemmed from that event, right? From TEDx there, and a post that you put out that day. But talk to us a little bit about that. What you saw that day, the feelings that evoked in you to call it out and start on this path, I guess.
It was a culmination, I guess. For me, that TEDx last year was the that final straw. And kind of even started this episode off just saying how much I appreciate being in this place. Brighton and Hove is such a special city, and I've traveled the world, and lived in so many amazing places. It's nowhere's perfect, and unfortunately, there is this comfort zone, this safe zone that I feel like comes part and parcel with maybe being white middle class. It's expensive here, and it's close to London. You can live here and commute, live by the sea. You have the downs, and so that means it's going to attract people who have the privilege. But there's also kind of places like maybe Molscombe, Whitehall, or
Whitehawk, yeah.
Whitehawk. Places where yeah, maybe they don't have that same degree of privilege and they live adjacent, but these two kind of groups of people don't really intermix. And I think Bud Johnston, Bud of Barco, he's really highlighted the unique way that Brighton has evolved. It doesn't have this kind of an area that is culturally black, or that's a Jamaican area, or West African area. People from the global majority just are kind of dispersed, and so we don't always move in blocks. But either way, somehow in Brighton, you go to the co-working spaces or you go to the networking events. You oftentimes, it's kind of striking. There's a lack of black and brown people in these spaces, in these events, and in these events, and relationships. That's what drives success. Your net worth is your network, and as a black immigrant, if you don't feel comfortable going into a business environment, if you don't feel a place of belonging, if you don't see other people like you, then you're going to struggle with building a business, with building connections. And at the same time, the existing community is not going to build that familiarity with diversity. It's not going to be normal for them to be an integrated company. And so it doesn't mean that the existing groups are looking to exclude, but we all have our biases and our comfort zones, and we gravitate to the people that we know. And so it becomes very challenging for people from diverse backgrounds to break into those circles. And yeah, beyond, yeah, with being at the different co-working spaces and networking events and feeling isolated. It was one time I was at this event, and I'm a very confident networker. You know, I was a member of BNI back when I was in Kent, and love it or hate it, BNI, it does an amazing job of teaching you how to be a really, really great networker. It teaches you like body position. It teaches you how to really be active in your listening, to make sure that you're thinking, how can I help this person in terms of what their goals are, or who they're looking to connect with. It does a great job with giving you the fundamentals of being a good networker. And so coming here, I struggled so much. I would go to events and I would do what I understood to be, everything right. And people would, just kind of go around me, look over me, look directly through me. People would not engage. And there's something about this city where people, I don't know if they're afraid of saying the wrong thing, or if, they're just like, I spend a lot of time with this person, so I'm going to go here because it's my comfort zone. I don't know. I don't feel like it's inherently bigoted or racist, but people avoid engaging with diversity, and it is disheartening, and it's sad, and it's isolating, and it makes you feel like you don't belong in these places and in these spaces. And in this one event, it's like, all right, I'm a confident networker. I'm going to go into the middle of the room, and it was a buzzing. It was like a kind of a Christmassy end of year awards event, and I am, kind of been at this space for a year and a half. People know me. They've seen my face. I've done talks here. I'm sure someone, will come and engage, or I will see an in where I can get in on a conversation. And 15 minutes, like stood in the middle of this room. It's like humiliating. It's humiliating. Like no one talking, to you. No one just coming up and just, striking up conversation. No one asking you like a question or showing any interest, doing everything they can to avoid you. And kind of that, in some similar instances have happened at multiple events hosted by completely different people and groups. And yeah, it's heartbreaking. I can't say it's a crummy feeling. It's a real crummy feeling. And the kind of the final straw was that TEDx last year. Like seeing this performing arts college on stage, and they were doing this hip hop street dance routine, and they nailed it. They were so good, excellent, and there wasn't a black or brown face on this stage. And it's like, this is my culture. I'm a black American. This is my culture. Felt like appropriation. Like, I know that's not the place where it came from, but that's what it felt like. And it just seemed like another opportunity where it's like, yeah, we like your culture, your expression, your dance moves, but not you. We're not going to use this opportunity to normalize the presence of a diverse face or a diverse culture in this premier environment. And at that point, I just had it. Like at that point, I'm like, this is enough. It's time to hold a mirror up to the city and say, you purport, to be so inclusive and so progressive and so liberal, and here in an opportunity to normalize the presence and to showcase, that we belong in these spaces. Our culture belongs, our dance moves belong, but what about our people? And at that moment, I just whipped out my phone, took a picture, and essentially went onto LinkedIn. It was like, look, Brighton, for all that you say, you know, and all that you showcase with your inclusivity as it relates to LGBTQ community, I don't believe that it is, you know, universal. I think that there is inclusivity for some, and now it's on you. Prove me wrong, because I don't believe in you anymore, and because I get a lot of my clients. I get all my clients basically from outside of Brighton. I didn't care. Like, y'all don't want to network with me. You're not trying to build relationships. You don't see the value that I bring to the table. Like, that 100th episode is beautiful. I was showing a potential client that video, because that for me is it's like you bring together this infusion of experiences and perspectives, and like diverse approaches, and what we created was so unique and so beautiful. But it's because you bring something unique. You have a story, and you've invested in it, and you've done so much to build the different hats. And then I bring my way of storytelling, and then we connect. We vibe. Because we have built a relationship. I feel you, and it's like I want the best for you. It's like I want to know what's at your heart. What does your heart really want to express? And so it becomes vitally important to me, and to put that in a way that's both in line with how you communicate and what you believe in, and how I express, and so I put this post up and didn't expect a thing from it, and then it kind of snowballed into something special.
Wow. Oh, mate, listen to that. Oh, mate, like, a couple of things for me. So many things. One, I feel a bit emotional, like hearing you talk in that way. I think, like, and I think that's what initially your post highlighted and evoked emotion in people for in the right way, right? Because I think I would hold my head up high and walk around and say I am inclusive, and I'm not got a bias or racist or gender anything bias in my body. And actually, maybe I have, because of I'm a white middle-aged man, and I've grown up in an environment, and I looked, and it just held, I think for me, held a mirror up to look for people to look at what they're doing. And I think that you nailed it when I first connected with you, and I reached out, and you nailed it by saying, yes, Brian, I'm not saying you're not inclusive, but we don't belong, and there's a difference between feeling like you're included. Of course you're welcome to come. Of course you're welcome to come in, but you don't feel like you belong, and that is the stark difference. And that, I think, is what, for me, highlighted something that held a mirror up to me and to anyone. I think hosting events, it should have done, and it was such a brave, amazing thing to do. And I'm glad that the response that you have had has been a really positive one, which has been amazing. We've gone on to that thing, but I guess, like, on my part, I just listened to you talking about that because I can't talk about resonance and trying to resonate, so I can't imagine that feeling of standing. I've never experienced that much, just as I would never have experienced racism. But to stand in a room and feel like you're being ignored, you don't be like, I can't. My heart breaks to hear things like that. It really does. I sit opposite you, knowing what a fucking beautiful human being you are, and what a wonderful man, and with a big heart, and all them things, and that, yet, because of potentially the way you looked, that was overlooked within that. I think people didn't get to know you, and they didn't see past that, and part of me, include me in that sense, I guess, and because we know what we know, like, we're in them things, and sometimes our heads are down and we're blinkered, and I think that's what was so powerful and brilliant about your post and what you did. You got people like me and everyone else to lift their head up, to open their eyes, really open their eyes, and listen, not just hear you, but listen, really hear you, really listen to what you're saying, and then see you for, and that is, I guess I'm, on my part, I'm grateful for you doing that. I'm really grateful because on the back of that, I've said it a couple of times in posts and stuff. On the back of that, what you're doing and what you have done is you're helping create where I want to bring my kids up in. That's where I don't want my kids to do or act in some maybe the ways I have and other people have. I want them genuinely. I want them to grow up in a world where everyone is 100% we're included. And what you've done in this last year has helped to do that. And for that, I need to say I'm just really grateful for that. Thank you. Oh, I'm getting a bit emotional. I'm gonna go.
Understandable, same.
But and I want to, I guess, just touching on, if we can, like I said, I've not experienced on myself. I've never, experienced racism. Can you share, like, when you moved to growing up in Arkansas, there to your journey, your story, travelling around the world as you have, coming to London, then to Brighton. Share. Can you share some experiences of racism over that period, and I guess where does Brighton fit into that, or into those experiences over your life?
The first time someone called me the N-word, I was I think I must have been, I was 11. And again, like I said, I got separated and put into a different educational tract when I was 9. So I was in this class, this accelerated class. They'd pull. We must have been 10 of us we'd have our intensive studies or whatever, and there was this one kid, named Bucky. We were doing some kind of analytical puzzle type challenge thing, and I think he wanted the pen or the marker that I had, and I wouldn't give it to him, and he just, like, you could tell he'd heard it from, like, his parents or something. He's like, "You N-word." It's like, and I didn't get mad, I just went straight into the principal's office and was like, "Bucky just called me an N-word." and yeah, he got sent home, and there's no malice, because I didn't really feel like he felt that way. I genuinely felt like, and I was 11 at the time, and I could already tell, it's like he's just repeating what he's heard older people say or something.
Yeah.
And but yeah, over here, goodness gracious, moved to the UK, and for the first 6 years, I was like, "Oh wow, this is amazing! Like, racism doesn't exist here," and black people would get mad at me, and they was like, "Yeah, you just don't see it, you don't get it," and it wasn't until I'd been working in the film and TV industry for some years, and was working with this one company, and had a good life, making great money, and doing lots of like work on TV sets, and I was also photographing, because at that time, I was doing both, and I kind of started my first business, Smith Studios. And if you go to my Smith Studios website, you'll see I've got all these images from all of these TV shows that I would photograph for the creative directors and set designers, and life was good, and was working with this one guy on a crew. And he invited me to kind of go play golf with him and hang out with his mates. And so we were in like around Hayes. That's west, isn't it? Like somewhere close to Heathrow.
Yeah.
Somewhere over in that area.
Yeah.
So we were hanging out in his area. He invited me to the pub with his mates, and when we got there, he was wasted, and he's kind of getting on it a bit. And like as his friends started showing up, and he's like, "Hey, this is my N-word," and it's like, "Whoa, man, that's not cool, dude. Like, no, don't say that." And he just kept, like, throughout the whole night, getting progressively more and more drunk. And my N-word. It's like, dude, that's not okay. And I was going through a divorce at the time, and so I thought I was there, with a friend, with a workmate, and he was, again, just like humiliating me in front of his friends, and I'm kind of there, and I'd had a couple drinks, and so I couldn't drive, I couldn't go anywhere. I was still living in Kent at the time, and I was going to stay at his place. And towards as the night progressed, I was like, man, he like brought me out with all of his friends to jump me. They were being quite aggressive, and the pub was closing, and so we were supposed to go to some other place, and we kind of a girl, like a friend of his, was driving, and kind of got to the car, and she's like, he can't get in, and that's when it's when it kind of dawned on me, in this kind of lad environment, and that I was on the outs, that I was different, and kind of went back to the director of the company, and was like the next day that we were at work, and I was like, I was out with old so and so, and he called me the N-word like all night, and it's like, this is not okay, and the director of the company was like, well, it's just what he's like, like, what do you want me to do about it? And so that's why I left the film and TV industry. That's kind of that for me was just like, this is not a safe space, and there is this. It's like psychological over here. People make you feel like, oh, you're safe. You're one of us, and then will very clearly show you, oh, no, you're not. And that guy, he went on to be like a director himself. And so the one who was the director, he bought out the company, he owned it, and this guy, like, he rose through the ranks, and is still like their guy, their man. And that for me kind of really sums up what it's like. And oftentimes I'm not quite sure if it's because I'm foreign, if it's because I'm American, because there's a lot of anti-American sentiments here, or if it's because I'm black. So sometimes it's difficult to tell which one it is, but I definitely know that I'm on the outs. And it's only been a few times. One other time when I was living in Canterbury, some persons, they were quite drunk, but they kind of were calling me the N-word randomly in a park, and it's like, all right, this is someone who's obviously drunk and indigent, but racism over here, it's more like one of the most cruel things you can do to someone is to not talk to them. It's one thing to tell someone, oh, like, I don't like you, or I prefer that we didn't engage or something, but just to ice someone out, that's real cruelty, and that's what I feel like it is here. People, they will kind of more isolate you, and make you feel that you're not included, that you're anonymous, that you're invisible. And that's what the racism over here is for me. It's very clever. I think it's a very British way of being passive aggressive.
And I guess, like, from that feeling, I guess, of loneliness, right? Isolation.
Oh man, it's the worst. And that's so much for me about Brighton United is life was hard. Growing up, life was really, really hard, and so I feel like I got broad shoulders. I always say that I got broad shoulders. I can handle it. I'll be all right. Like, I'll be all right. I don't want people to experience what I've experienced. I don't want people to go through that. I don't want people to feel that isolation or that lack of belonging, being on the outs, and people assuming that you don't bring value, that you don't have something to contribute. And so I think if we look at that 100th episode, between me and Jamaro and you, like the three of us, and I know there are other people who contributed, but I feel like we've created something that's unique. It's like there's nothing out there that I've seen that's like that. It's so beautiful, and it's like the cinematography, is, I think it's on point. And your story, your message, what you bring, is just like we just brought it,
I said to Jamal when I've messaged him, and I know I said the same to you, and then look, I'm still on a high from that night, right? Sitting there watching that night, I think it's, I don't know, if I could just bottle that magic there, but and I said it on the night, like, you have a level. I think you have a level of expectation for certain things in life. And they say that there's the happiness equation. Mo Gaudat said about the happiness equation is when your expectations match reality. But what happens then when the reality exceeds your expectations?
Yeah, it's beautiful.
bottle that. We sell that, mate. We're doing all right. We're nicking a few quid on that because like what I remember messaging you a couple of things and what the vision I had for it and my expectations were here, and I knew that we'd create something special. And what you and Jamal put together just like exceeded more than I ever allowed myself to dream. I think before I even allowed myself to dream that it could be like it was, and then to bring people together in a room and watch it on a big screen and see it unfold, and the feedback still now. I'm still getting phone calls now going, I watched that. Like, it was, and you're right. Just by, I guess, us coming together and you guys just getting me, just getting what I wanted to do, and I was in your both of you. Just, I remember Jamal like I think I actually only saw it a few days before. Like he put it together, he had a lot going on and stuff. But you know, when you just try, I don't know, I just trusted that it would all, and it was. And I sat and. You know, I'm obviously I'm a crier. Right? I've cried. So, but I sat there. I was in my room, and he showed me the first clip of it. He said, "I'll just show you a little clip of what I put together." And I'm like,
Yes.
"Oh, mate, I'm done. You've done it." And it was just, and there's something magical in that I think I'm assuming, and what you're trying to with Brighton United, and what you're trying to bring together to show what can happen when we do really belong together, when we all do come together as a real community. I talk so much about community and how much I love this community. And again, back to what you started, you questioned what I'm building something. I'm building this amazing community. I'm not. What I've built is a community that I feel comfortable and safe in, but not one that I want to build, not one that you've highlighted that we could build. We could build if we open our eyes a little bit and look around and go, actually, what else can we do? What can this be like? Because to listen to you talk, how you just have shared those stories and those experiences, that's not a world I want my kids to grow up in. I don't want that. For the future. And what you've done is almost like I think you highlighted before, like almost like we're working in that silo mentality. We're working over here and over here, right? And if we can come together, what possibilities can happen, right?
I wonder, kind of going back to my friend who, when we were, in the cathedral, and
Yeah.
we, were looking at his great grandfather on the wall, and I wonder if it's one of the things as an American, we don't have that same kind of history, and as a Black American, I only have my grandfather, and so is it over here that the successful, maybe the middle class, are they maybe passing down this way of ensuring that you hold on to your status in society, and so the way to do that is being a little bit more conservative and sticking to the people that and being wary, because those Vikings, they're just over there, so you kind of have to like be on guard against difference. Sometimes I wonder if it's just like this way of making sure that you continue cycling success for generations, and so that it's almost becomes a reflex. I don't think it's definitely, it's not intentional, the way that this place has become so siloed and not quite inclusive, and but it'll also it'll take an intentional effort to change it, and so and I would hope that the rest of Brighton want to be a part of a world where we work together, we collaborate, we create beautiful things like the 100th episode, and we see the humanity in one another, we see the shared values, and we have that trust, because that's what it comes down to. You were able to put your trust in me and Jamal because you believed in our values. And if we can maybe recalibrate to be more in tune, and that's a lot of what my TED Talk is going to be about. How do we identify, that's why I even started this episode with my understanding of success is knowing what you stand for, knowing what's true to you. Because once you know what's true to you, then you can identify that when you meet other people. And that transcends kind of culture, cultural background or color or socioeconomic, background or age, sexual orientation, your values. Those things they correlate, they kind of correspond beyond those like groups, those ways of making differentiations between us. And so that's for me is what we really, if we want to be successful, we have to identify our core values, and then we have to learn to divine that in others, and go beyond the snap judgment of what we see, and start to be more in tuned. And I can see the way that this person carries themselves. I can see how that they engage with other people. I can see, what kind of parent they are. We share values. We should have a relationship. We should do things together because they're going to bring innovative, or different perspectives and unique experiences. And then when we do something together, we're going to do something that's going to be so beautiful, that we're going to be so proud of. And it's also going to showcase how special this place is because it's bringing all of these unique people who share values together, who can collaborate and who can come up with new innovative ways of doing things. Then that's such a huge opportunity. And that is my challenge. My challenge to people is, if you want to be successful, identify your values and then identify those values in others, and then build relationships with those people and then collaborate.
That is, I love that. That is so, for me, that is so, again, alignment with values. While we're sitting here together, right, you listen to that, and it's exactly that. I think my whole thing around trying to redefine success based on that, I'm putting together this framework that aligns with a lot of the learnings from the 100th episode, and what come out of that piece we created was, and I'm creating a framework based on that, based on them type of things. Like, what is it that we do as individuals? Because unless you know who you are there and what your values are, and finding true fulfillment, you can only find that true fulfillment and contentment if you know what they are, and to start with, what your purpose is, or why you're here, and once we have got that, you're right. The ultimate thing, one of the pillars of success for me is relationships. I talked about it on that, and that true human connection that we can really build and bond from. But that comes from, you're exactly right. I think you're exactly right. It comes from knowing where your values are, and values and human connection. There's no colour or gender or anything that relates to that. That's just who you are as an individual, and I'm going to bond with you based on that. We don't see anything else. You know what I mean? It would just be based on who, and what a wonderful world that we could. I relate it, I guess. I can only relate it to like Lucy, and like from, she's born Luca, and she's going through that gender fluidity, right to the point where I'm a girl, and I'm gonna be, and I'm like, I see her, and she knows who she is. She, like 9 years old, she knows who she is, and she's proud, and I'm like, wow, like from someone again who, like, I've grown up in a world thinking I'm very open-minded and liberal, and I've got a 9-year-old who's teaching me about the world. Unbelievable, right? And then you start to, your blinkers go off a little bit, and you start to open your eyes a little bit more, and you look around, and then you've got beautiful humans like you standing there opposite me, or sitting opposite me now, and you've opened my eyes a little bit more, and now I'm going, wow, actually I haven't got any blinkers on now. I'm trying to, and I still, look, with everything in life, it's a journey, and we're trying to find out about stuff, but I feel like, again, people like her, people like you, are people that will change the world and help to make it a world that, what a beautiful place we could create, right? What a beautiful place we could live in. And for me, we won't go politics and talk about America and what's going on there at the moment with Trump and things like that, but you go, actually, can we just right now, can we just change our little corner of the world?
Yes.
does that create a ripple effect that who knows where that goes, right?
That's the goal. That's the vision, and that's when we had our launch party last week. That was the takeaway because we were always formed. Even though Brighton United is the name of this movement here, our CIC, our Community Interest Company, is Business United, and it was formed to be an umbrella for the marginalized, for the neurodivergent, the aging community, for people who feel on the outs. It's like, this is the model. This is how we gain visibility and build a sense of belonging, and like the quote unquote mainstream. And so yeah, the vision, it is for us to show what's possible, and we're so fortunate to be in this place in Brighton where people, you put forth a challenge, you put forth, like okay, I think this would be good, this is what we can achieve, and people show up, like invigorated, and they're just like yeah, we can, let's do something special, let's be a part of something special. And yeah, that's what I feel like is happening with Brighton United, and I do believe that this is something that we can showcase in time to be like, this is how you work together, this is how you put your ego to the side, this is how you focus on values, on relationships, and then when you come together, then it's harmonious and it's such good vibes. That was the thing about that event, is that just going in, I knew it was going to be good vibes, and on the other side, people were were buzzing, and it was like, this is what it's about, like an incredibly diverse crowd, probably is, I don't know, pretty close to 50-50 global majority.
Yeah, absolutely.
And everybody, talking, even downstairs coming in just now, I saw two people, there's, yeah, two people, one global majority, like one white middle class, and they met at that event, and they were meeting downstairs and building on the conversation, on that relationship they forged. And that's the vision. We're really primed to do something special and show, at least if nothing else, the rest of the UK what's possible. I feel like this is Brighton's chance to show, if nothing else, our country what's possible.
I just wanted to take a moment to talk about one of our sponsors, Nostos, an authentic experience of Greece right here in the heart of Hove. In a world brimming with dining options, finding that one place that captivates your palate and heart isn't always easy. It's about more than food. It's the stories, the ambience, the slice of another world. This is the essence of Nostos, an award-winning Greek restaurant. With traditional recipes passed down through generations, each dish promises a story and a piece of heritage. And Nostos is more than just a restaurant. It's a community contributor. Each dining experience supports initiatives close to their heart, from local charities to cultural events, enriching Brighton and Hove's social fabric. They also provide catering services, bringing Greek cuisine to your personal events. For a taste of Greece without leaving town, visit nostos-hove.co.uk. And when you do go, say Sam recommended the feta nests. Oh my God, they are amazing.
Listen, I completely agree. You're right. I was privileged to be at that event, and it was just a beautiful. I think one thing I wonder whether you've been challenged on, and I think people, my understanding maybe, and I might have been in this camp at the start, where you go, oh, but everyone is like, is there? Have we got many black or brown people here within the business community that actually are it's just a side of what is it events like? There's not that many black or brown, but you proved that of course there is.
Yeah.
There's lots of black and brown people. There's lots of global majority people that will come to these events if we create an environment where they feel like they belong.
That's key, and that's the challenge. And again, it's not about pointing fingers. It's like no one's fault, but the fact is, a lot of the existing spaces and groups, they don't have global majority or people with that lived experience in their comms and their messaging internally. Like they don't have them in positions of influence, so it's impossible to put out a message that resonates with the global majority if you don't have someone internally who informs that messaging, who knows how to put it out, or who knows how to put on an event, and maybe the catering, or the speaker or some aspect of it. Like something has to resonate with other groups for them to feel like, oh yeah, this makes sense to me. I belong here because they've considered people, from my background. And maybe the wording, the messaging, the people who are promoting the event. There has to be something where people can see themselves in it. Otherwise, it's just like white noise. You just say, you like, why would I pay attention to this? There's nothing in the messaging that signifies that is for me. So that's where the real opportunity is. And it's like we just have to relax our egos a bit, and I think that people, we all want to say like, oh, no, we're doing a great job with our messaging, we're doing a great job with our socials, we're being inclusive. But if you don't have people who represent the groups that you're hoping to engage with, if you're not collaborating with them on your messaging, then I'm sorry, but it's just homogenous, like you're communicating to people just like you, because your experience can only speak to people who are just like you.
Yes. Will it be? You might not even know this now, but almost I sort of see like, is it that Brighton United create this blueprint and this template that we're able to go to event organisers, to go to people and go, this is what you do, almost like a thing, like this is what you're doing, this is what you could do to help with this situation, right? To help that happen, because I think maybe there's a starting point that people don't know what that looks like to them, and from someone who does brand and storytelling, so even with Bud and the stuff he does with his workshops with diversity and inclusion, maybe is there something there that we can that you create to give as templates to people to be able to go, this is how we can communicate in a better way, and this is how we can make it so that, because what I'd love is to create an event where one of the events I host, whether it be Big Business Breakfast Club, whatever it is, one of them events, have that vibe, that feel, that representation that you created at Brighton United. Wouldn't it be amazing that was all of the events that we look around, that's what's happening?
That's the goal, and I believe it's possible. I also, for me, for Brighton United, it's critical that the interests of the overarching community, that's the priority. And so I wouldn't feel comfortable being a part of your events, or being a part of any of the co-working spaces if they're opening the doors to the global majority. I wouldn't feel comfortable to engage if our presence wasn't bringing something to help you achieve your goals. And that is
Sure.
critically important. We have to move past this mentality where we're, I don't know, like, oh, I feel bad, that we haven't been as inclusive as we can. So like, let us make up for that in some ways. Like, no, we're going to work together for common goals. You tell me what you need. What is your goals? What are your visions? And like, this is, our visions, our goal. Where do those intersect? How can we work together, like for common goals, for a shared success? Because what you want to achieve is valid. You deserve that. There's nothing should come in the way of that. You collaborating and working with other people shouldn't impede that in any way. And so, like, I think that's for me what the real critical element of Brighton United. We're looking to be a bridge, and we're seeing that bridge, who's kind of joining up these siloed communities. But at the same time, as like if you're going to access this bridge, then the first thing is that you have to have respect and an appreciation for the values or for the priorities of the people on that side. And you have to be open and receptive to it. It's not a one-way street. That's for me is humanity. That's, if you want to work together, you have to respect and honor like the needs and the concerns of the other people.
Case in point, 100th episode, right? Come together for a shared goal. Nothing like your skill set and creative genius with Jamal coming together. took something that I've got and made it better, right? That's what we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
That's what it's about. It's about, you're exactly right, bridging that gap. Just people coming together with great skill sets, irrespective of of class, gender, colour, whatever those things are. We're coming together for a bigger goal, right? And we all can thrive through that, right? That's where I
Exactly.
think that's what I'm looking at, the message and what I felt from that night. And look, maybe that's it. The 100th episode, from my point of view, I look at it and go, maybe that's for me on a personal level, that I go, that's my starting point to go, look, this is my template to go, look what actually, I didn't come to you because I felt bad. I come to you because I'd watched your stuff and gone, this guy gets it. And we'd built a relationship,
Yes.
and we'd connected, and all them lovely things that we said, that values aligned and all them things. But and then I only met Jamal. You brought Jamal along, and I'd only sat round that table at Brighton United, but I connected with him that day, which you captured at that first conversation me and him had. And I was like, this guy gets it.
Yeah.
And again, you just align with values then, and that connection me and him built. Again, I'd class him, known him for that amount of time, I'd class him as a friend. I'd hope he'd say the same.
It's easy to believe in him.
Yeah.
He's one of those people you can just
Again,
believe in him.
So, mate, honestly, I don't know. Thank you so much for so many things, for coming on and sharing your story with me, getting to know you.
But likewise, thank you for your trust, and because it's normal for people to be, I say, nervous, or to have trepidation for the unknown. Like, I've only moved here in the past few years, and it's tough to build up trust in the unknown. And I think that's one of the things also that I kind of want to impress upon people watching is, I think I mentioned it earlier. It's just like, I could just consider myself, I got broad shoulders, I can handle it. And so having that, like, pushing yourself into the unknown, or into those uncomfortable places, relationship wise, engaging with someone who's different. Yeah, it can be a little bit stressful. It's an unknown, but when you know yourself and you have confidence in yourself to make the most of a situation, or to, like, be able to make a positive out of it, then I feel, for me, you feel better about yourself when you have that sense. It's just like, what, I have that dexterity. I know that I will be successful, or that I can handle these situations. So then you can put yourself into these situations where maybe you're not so sure. This person is a little different. But actually, I'm gonna have a go. Because I know me. I know that I'm sound, and that I'm going to be okay, and that I can handle it, even if this person is abrasive, or is just, like, not my kind of person or something. And so that's the real challenge is if you want to be proud of yourself, then, like, like, do that uncomfortable thing, engage with someone who you would just, like, normally you would just play it safe and stay away from, because that's a sign that you're developed, and that you have resilience, that you have strength and dexterity, and you can be proud, even if that interaction doesn't go well. You can be proud of yourself. And I think that most people want their kids to grow up being proud of who they are, being proud of who their parents are. And if you have that that resilience, and that resolve, that strength to engage with the unknown, then that's something in and of itself to be proud of. But the fact is more than likely you will come away enriched from that experience, and from that situation, stepping outside your comfort zone.
Love that. Mate, it's been brilliant. I knew it would be. I knew we'd have a wonderful conversation, and I'm so, I guess, honoured to have been able to share your story, and what you're trying to achieve with Brighton United, and everything beyond, and I guess, thank you for highlighting what you have done in Brighton. And you're, like I said, you're starting to build something here. You've started it, right? And it's not just about, I don't think it's just about people call it. You didn't just call something out, point fingers and go. You took action. You went, listen, I'll take this on, but show me that we can do it. And you've done that. Like, fucking hell, like, just it's been amazing to see, and I cannot wait to be in that front row watching you on that TEDx stage, sharing your incredible story on April the 4th. And you know, it's going to be a sold out event, I'm sure, and it's going to be epic. And I really feel like what you've created, this is just the tip of the iceberg, right? It's just the start of creating something truly, truly special. And I'm grateful for all you've done so far. So, mate, thank you so much. It's been awesome.
Brother, thank you for being there from day one. You know, you've been there with Brighton United, supporting us and informing us. You have put your imprint on it. You've been there since day one, and thank you. Big love, big respect.
We're gonna do all right, mate. Listen, I've introduced a new talking about storytelling, which we have done. I've introduced a new tradition to the podcast for this series, and this is our events that you're going to come to one day. I know you haven't been able to make one yet, but I use our my storytelling cards, which are very cool. So I'm going to get you to pick one of these and hand it back to me.
That's the one.
That's the one, right? And we'll ask this question. Oh no. We are gonna have to get you to pick another one, only because of all the ones you could have picked out. How do you define success?
Oh.
We're gonna go again. Of course that was in there. Had to be in there. Pick again. How funny. There is only one of them, so we'll be all right. This is gonna be a different one. Okay. If you could unlearn one belief or mindset that's held you back, what would it be and why?
If I could unlearn one belief or one mindset, it would be I think it would probably be reacting in a dominant or domineering energy. I think one thing that I've learned from being in the UK is how beautiful civility is. And I come from a background, from a culture where it's quite contentious. You can be quick to tell somebody how you feel or what you think. And I would say there's been relationships with beautiful people who maybe I haven't maybe shown that I haven't prioritized kind of peace and maybe been a little bit powder keg in a way, and so I think it's really prioritizing relationships over being right, over kind of expressing your point of view. I think relationships, like you define success by relationships, and it's something that has taken me longer in life to really appreciate just how relationships are everything. And so, definitely would say relationships are more important than being right. And
Mate, thank you again, my friend. It's been absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, it's been
Listen,
beautiful.
I wish you every success on that stage, and I can't wait to see you on there, mate. So, all the best. And that, as they say, is a wrap.